All right, let's just dive right into this. For over a century, the entire world has been totally captivated by what seems like an unbreakable cipher. We're talking about a book written in an alien script completely packed with bizarre illustrations of unidentifiable plants and this weird, almost biological plumbing. But what if I told you that we've been looking at it completely wrong this whole time? Seriously. Today, in this explainer, we're going to entirely reframe this famously impossible text. Because it's not a book of nonsense. It is actually a highly structured 13th century apothecary schematic. Welcome to the Johnson-Voynich Laboratory Manual, and specifically our deep dive into the multi-axis key.
So, you might be wondering, how exactly do you navigate a book that you literally cannot read? Well, we all have this massive built-in bias as modern readers, right? We open a cover, we look at the top left of the page, and we just read line by line down to the bottom right. But the author of this manuscript absolutely did not design it to be read that way. It was intentionally engineered to protect its secrets. It actually requires a physical, multi-axis approach to unlock. You have to use specific 90-degree and 180-degree physical rotations. You don't just passively read this thing, you have to physically operate it.
Here is our quick roadmap for decoding the manual today. We'll cover the unbreakable myth, the multi-axis key, the universal translation key, the entropy deficit, astronomical heat equations, and finally, the master flowchart.
Okay, Section 1, the unbreakable myth.
To really crack this system, we first have to understand exactly where it came from. Currently, it's known as Yale's MS-408. It's a vellum manuscript, carbon dated to the early 1400s, famously discovered back in 1912, and it has baffled literally everyone, from top cryptographers to supercomputers, for 100 years. But the true mastermind behind these protocols? It's actually a 13th century wizard scholar named Michael Scot. This guy was a brilliantly unorthodox mind who translated Arabic texts and delved super deeply into alchemy for the Holy Roman Emperor. So what we are actually looking at in the voynich is a third-generation reproduction of Scott's original work, and it heavily utilizes a really clever combination of runic letters and Islamic mathematics.
Moving on to Section 2, the multi-axis key. Like I mentioned earlier, you can't just read this manual straight through. You have to fundamentally shift your physical perspective. The symbols drawn on the vellum essentially act as navigational valves to let you access these deeper recursive layers. And here are the exact physical mechanics you actually have to perform. First, a 90-degree or 180-degree rotation of the pages. You literally have to turn the physical manuscript in your hands. Second, certain sections specifically require a mirrored or backwards viewing angle. And third, once you've manipulated the page, you have to align those runic letters with the incorporated Islamic mathematics. It's like a giant mechanical puzzle.
Which brings us to Section 3, the universal translation key.
Because once you actually apply that crucial rotation, something incredible happens. Those mysterious, seemingly unbreakable glyphs suddenly transform into this core operational glossary. A highly precise, technical, alchemical language reveals itself. This right here is your ultimate Rosetta Stone. When rotated, the glyph that looks kind of like an 8 becomes the English indicator for weight, or a dram. That's the primary anchor of measurement. The symbol 4P is a scruple, which acts as a process valve or separator. AAW translates directly to weight or stasis, giving you the exact duration of chemical rest. 8M means maceration, basically an instruction to soak your raw botanical material. And finally, 8V signifies the refined extract. It is a dry, ultra-specific, and totally functional laboratory vocabulary.
Let's actually look at this multi-axis key in action with two miniature case studies. Take Folio 1V, which details nightshade. Nightshade is classified as a sedative or, frankly, a poison. And because you definitely do not want to overdo it with toxicity, the manual explicitly instructs measuring it in much smaller scruples, that 4P valve, and it requires a strict triple stasis. You can see that indicated by the repeating 8AW weight symbol 3 times. Now contrast that with Folio 2R, ephedra. Ephedra is a stimulant. It's measured in the much larger Drax, the 8 glyph, and only requires a single stasis. So we're seeing highly specific engineered instructions for highly specific botanicals.
Section 4, the 1.16-bit entropy deficit.
So let's see how all this builds into the more bizarre visual sections of the manuscript. You've probably seen the famous biological folios, right? The ones filled with strange tubs and weird pipes. Well, for decades, people thought this was some kind of microscopic biology or bizarre alien anatomy. It's not. It is actually a visual, mathematical calculation of loss. And I really want you to focus entirely on this one specific number, 1.16.
This is the exact mathematical factor of mass that is lost to evaporation and waste during the chemical extraction process. It is a strict 1.16-bit entropy deficit that the medieval apothecary had to constantly, obsessively solve for.
And here is the exact technical formula required by Michael Scot's protocols to solve it. You take the raw weight of your botanical material, and you must subtract that 1.16 factor of evaporation and waste. The mathematical result of this equation is what the manual calls the resting information. And what does that mean in modern terms? That is your final dosage. This calculation is absolutely crucial. It ensures that the high-potency extract reaches the exact, safe, final concentration before it ever reaches a patient.
But hey, what happens if it's pouring rain outside? Believe it or not, the manual accounts for that too. Throughout the diagrams, you'll frequently spot these wavy lines. Those aren't just decorative doodles, they are humidity markers. The translated instruction actually tells us that high humidity increases that 1.16 deficit. So to mathematically rebalance the weight and save the dosage, the apothecary has to add exactly 1 scruple, 1 4p, of raw material to the mix. It is truly breathtaking environmental engineering happening right on the page.
Section 5. Astronomical timing. Let's completely refocus on another famous section, the zodiac folios. They're filled with these intricate drawings of star maps and astrological signs. But here's the wild part. Those famous stars are not astronomical markers at all. They are strict thermal units. It's entirely about heat equations. In the Aries and Taurus folios, which represent the expansion of summer, you will see a very high star density. This translates directly to an instruction for maximum solar heat applied for the rapid maceration of common plants. But look at the Scorpio and Sagittarius folios, representing the contraction of winter. The star density there is very low. This dictates the cooling required to achieve that triple stasis we saw earlier, which is necessary to stabilize highly toxic substances like nightshade. The stars are literally a medieval temperature gauge.
Section 6. The master flowchart. Okay, so we've looked at the micro instructions. Now, let's zoom out to the macro-level structure of the whole operation. If you turn to Folio 86V, you'll find this staggering, massive fold-out map known as the Rosette Map. For years, brilliant scholars thought it was a map of a lost city or maybe the cosmos. In reality, it is the magnum opus flowchart. It serves as the master translation of the entire laboratory workflow. The raw materials are harvested in the outer circles. They are then moved inward, mathematically passing through those 4p process valves, the scruple separators. Finally, all the chemical processes converge precisely at the center, the equilibrium hub, which is where the final bottling occurs.
And honestly, the sheer scale of this operation is absolutely staggering. The manuscript features a deeply recursive structure. It contains 4 main books. Each of those contains 4 books, which each contain 4 books, going 4 levels deep. This creates a massive 4 to the power of 4 matrix. We are literally talking about 256 interconnected recursive subbooks of exact weights, wait times, and thermal requirements.
All of this, the 90 and 180-degree physical rotations, the 1.16 entropy deficit calculations, the 256 subbooks, the thermal star units, all of it flows to that central equilibrium hub on the master flowchart. And what is the ultimate goal of bottling at that central hub? The text translates this with complete, dry, deadpan technical seriousness. It is a standard, structured, step-by-step recipe for producing the philosopher's stone.
And that is really what you should take away from all this. The most mysterious book in human history isn't magic, and it definitely isn't gibberish. It is a highly advanced, practically engineered blueprint by a 13th century genius who is clearly working on an industrial scale. So it leaves us with a totally fascinating, almost provocative thought. If Michael Scot successfully engineered a 256-step multi-axis manual for creating the Philosopher's Stone, what other impossible alchemical feats did he actually pull off? I really hope this explainer has completely reframed how you see this incredible document, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring the decoded technical lore of our past.